Hi everyone, good evening. My name is James. I am lucky enough to work in the field of AI, and it doesn't escape me what a privilege that is. So, over the past few months, I've been spending quite a lot of time with family and friends inside and outside of work, helping people to get the most of some of the tools like ChatGPT or Copilot. And what struck me is not everyone is as lucky to use these as regularly as I do. So tonight I thought I'd geek out a little bit and try making a video that may be helpful for others. So let's start and we'll talk about some research that's recently been released. It's actually been released by OpenAI. They've done a study of how their tool is being used by others. Super interesting to read, available online. But the one thing that I really sort of, I guess I wasn't surprised by, but that found very interesting is just seeing the breakdown of how it was being used. And that kind of differs between how it's used by consumers and how it's used in the workplace. And one of the things that you can see here is lots of people are using it for writing, producing content. So 24% of consumers, 24% of the usage by consumers is for writing, and actually 40% of the usage, the highest usage in the workplace, is for writing. So I thought maybe it would be a good idea to show you how to use it for a writing task. Now, I was asked recently by my sister to write a speech. She's getting married and she'd asked if my brother and I would speak the evening before their wedding, which of course I was very happy to do. And I thought, given that I work in the field of AI, maybe AI could help me with this. People will always assume that I was going to anyway, so why not use it? Now, before I start writing this speech, one of the most common things that I hear from people that have tried is it was kind of interesting when they've tried to do it, but it wasn't useful. It wasn't actually that valuable to them. It lacked anything that sounded like something they would say. And my assumption is that the way that they're using it is more similar to Google than I would encourage. So let's show you, first of all, how not to prepare a speech. Can you help me to write a speech for my sister's wedding? It will be read out the night before and should last for about 8 minutes. Right, magically, with just one sentence, it has started to prepare a speech for me. Now, when you read through that speech, you realise it's very well written, and it could be read out by just about anybody. I'm sure it's a great speech, but it's not one that people are going to remember because it doesn't say much about my sister, it doesn't say much about my brother-in-law, and it certainly doesn't give any real sense of who I am as a speaker. So, first lesson for people, please don't treat this like it is Google. It isn't. That isn't how you get the most from one of these tools. So instead, let's use a slightly different approach. Let's start by giving it a role. Let's tell it who you are. So you are the brother of the bride, and you have been asked, alongside your own brother, to prepare and deliver a speech for the evening before the wedding of your sister. So I've given it a little bit of information about the role that I'm playing, but I haven't really told it who I am, and ChatGPT doesn't really know me. So let's say you are a kind, down-to-earth and fun person. You like to be playful with your family and friends, and by no means would you like to offend anybody in the crowd. Okay, so we've given it a pretty clear role there. Let's give it an instruction. You are to prepare a speech that lasts no longer than 8 minutes and welcomes people to their wedding weekend, sets the mood for the weekend, and gets the evening off to a great start. So we've given it a role and we've given it an instruction. Okay, Now let's give it some context. Remember, the complaint that we get before is that these things don't really feel like something that you would say, or something, they don't really have any sort of personality to them. It's because you haven't loaded it up. Now, a little bit of a Blue Peter moment here. Before I started this, I got the train home from work, and when getting the train home from work, I had brain dumped a load of context into the notes on my phone. And I'm now going to, here is some context. Now I'm going to paste that context in. Here is some context that should be considered or weaved into the speech, please. Okay, lots of useful, lots of fun stories, lots of useful little anecdotes to weave through. So role, instruction, context. Other additional context, the evening will be full of family and friends, school friends, university friends, and friends from the workplace. Family of multiple generations will be in the audience, also from both sides. Okay, lots of very useful context there. So role, instruction, context. Now, if I was really doing this well, I would also give it some examples, and I would like to give it some examples of speeches that I have done already, but I actually don't have any to hand. What I do have to hand is the speech that my brother has prepared. He's somewhat more organised than I am, so I'm going to paste that in. So, as an example, please find the speech that my brother will do on the same evening. Okay, let me just switch over and get that speech to copy in. This is going to be quite helpful because it will get a sense of the tone, the style, but also without even me telling it, it will know not to repeat some of the pieces that he is doing. Okay, role, instruction, context, examples. Now this last bit arguably is the bit that I want you to remember the most. So very few people have started to do this, but it will change how you feel about this tool. It will move from being something that's kind of useful to something that feels like you've got a speechwriter, or you've got a coach, or you've got a mentor, or a teammate, or a friend by your side here. And that is that you really want this thing to ask you some questions. So ask it to ask you some questions. Okay, so let's try that out. So please, before we proceed, can you ask me some questions? I would like you to ask me them, and I will answer one at a time. Now, usually I wouldn't tell it this, but for the sake of a video, I'm going to limit it to 5 questions, so we can get all the way through the video. Please only ask me 5 questions. When you have the answers, let's create this together. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to put that through. You can see this definitely isn't Google anymore. This is a huge prompt that we're starting to put in, and it's going to ask me some questions. Okay. When you picture the tone of the speech, do you want it to lean more towards playful and funny, heartfelt moments, or sentimental with a sprinkle of humour? I would like it to be very balanced, please. Okay, next question. Do you and your brother plan to deliver the speech together, bouncing off each other, or will each of you do your own separate? We will do separate speeches, please. Perfect. What's one of your favourite personal memories of Steph and Dan together? Something that really shows their personality. I love seeing how they are as a family, and especially when that involves my family too. Lovely angle, great. If you could describe Dan in just 3 words, what's the first that comes to mind? Fun, loving, emotional. Okay, great choice. And when you think about Steph as your sister, what's the one quality that you're proudest in her? so deeply loving and fun. Oh, bit of a typo, my bad. Okay, so it's taken it. Would you like me to give the full version of a speech? Yes, please. Full version, please. Okay, so it's now going to give me a speech that takes in much more consideration as to who I am, takes in much more consideration as to the context, to real life events, to things about Steph, Dan, their family and I. The really nice thing about it is it doesn't have to stop there. You can iterate as well. So I don't love the ending. Can you make a much grander toast, please? Okay, this thing doesn't mind. It's very happy to iterate, and it's going to give me a really sort of rich toast. Quite frankly, that's not something that I would say, but you get a sense of this. It doesn't have to be I say, you say, the end. It can be you AI, and you carry on that way. So you get the chance to iterate. So let's kind of wrap up what we've said here. Really important: role, instruction, context, examples. Get it to ask you some questions. Now, I know that AI is maths. I know there isn't a person sitting the other side of the screen, but when it starts to ask you questions in the way it does, it certainly feels like there is. So with that, I'm going to stop there. Hopefully you found this useful. If you have, please do let me know, and good luck with your future ChatGPT.